picture was taken right over there. It's 20 inches from this fescue down to this Fragipan starts, 20 inches. Now if you get 4 inches of rain during June, July, and August, and you've stored 20 inches of water, inches of water and 20 inches of soil, you're going to run out somewhere around the last part of July, if it's a normal year. And if it's down 36 inches, you'll make it through most of that. If it's 4 feet, you've got really good insurance. So most of us on Fragipan soils are working with this, and you're going to run out. And so that's why we want to do this. That's why we're trying to do this. So this is a soil. This right here was blown in. This was blown in. Those glaciers that came down, they're nothing but ice bulldozers. That's all they are. They leveled off Ohio and Indiana and a lot of Indiana, a lot of Illinois. And when they got through melting, it's 60 miles from Cape Girardeau, well, from the Kentucky border to Poplar Bluff, 60 miles. That's all floodplain. That's all floodplain. That's washed down. And then it got dry at times, and fellas went to blow 2 feet of soil in here. It was pretty rough, you know, at times, right in here. But when they blew that in 2 feet from that interface right on down, that's where that gel set up. That's where cement came and happened. And when you get over that pit over there, you'll see a Fragipan that's about 4 to 5 feet deep, thick. So you ever going to get through that with Italian ryegrass? With annual ryegrass, probably not, but you can make a deeper soil. Now this is a cross section of that. All this brown right here, reddish brown, that's cemented. There's no pores. There's no holes. The water won't go through it, and roots won't go through it. It just stops everything. It completely stops it. So when you look at where it's located in the United States, that's where it's located in the United States. Eastern part of the United States has to be acid. Has to be an acid condition for it to form. That's the reason we have it in Kentucky. That's the reason we have it in the eastern part. It's the reason they don't have it there, even though they had similar conditions in some situations. So that's a lot of soil that's affected. Here in Kentucky, here's where ours is. Now, the reason this is heavy in through here is because this is the floodplain over here. This is where the wind blew this way, and this is where that silt stacked up. It didn't get much over here at all, and these areas right here where it didn't form, those were limestone-derived soils. They were high pHs, and that's the reason they didn't form. But you can see that it's a real problem in a lot of the production there. Most of the row crops are from here west, from this point west, and so it's a real problem for us in Kentucky. About 3 million acres, close to 3 million in Kentucky, and I talked to you about 50 million acres in the United States. Now, we can take a core. This thing seems to be leaning, or I am. Is it me or this thing?
I think the Fragipan settled a little bit.
We can take cores out of this land right in here and take it to the greenhouse and introduce different materials on it. And one of the things we did is introduce annual rye grass, and we grew it at different times in different places. And this is the second growing of annual rye grass. This is fescue for 100 years or 60 years or something. And then this right here is annual rye grass. This is the Fragipan, starts right here and goes down. You see this is the Fragipan here. You see the changing color that happens at the second planting of annual rye grass. When you get a microscope and look at this right here, this is powder. This is where that has dissolved. This is the soil particles individually now, where the cement has been dissolved in their individual particles. And then if you put a soybean ryegrass rotation, and you do it, you run it 6 times, annual ryegrass and soybeans, 6 times in the greenhouse. This is where the Fragipan starts. This is the control. This is where the Fragipan started before we got 6 cycles of ryegrass. And when we cut that open, the stuff just fell out. This is the difference between annual ryegrass and no annual ryegrass. These particles are released, and they become individual soil particles. You see the roots go down all the way. I'm sure you can't see that, but the roots go all the way down through here. This is 10 inches. We have replications, and some of them weren't 10 inches. Some of them were 5 and 6 inches. But overall, it was probably average around 6 or 7 inches. So we've seen it happen. We know it happens. And so we find fields that for one reason or another in Kentucky and Indiana, and you'll hear from Mr. Upton in a minute, in Illinois, that have had a history of annual ryegrass. And some of them have grown 5 times in the last 10 years, 5 times in the last 10 years, 6 times out of the last 6 years, and 10 times out of the last 10 years, and 5 times out of the last 5 years. And this is the increased depth. When we compare the edge of this field that had ryegrass to go right across that road right there and compare it to one that hadn't had ryegrass, this is the increased depth. And you can see that it goes from like 3 inches on some of the probably more dense, hard, cemented to 14 inches there on Dave Fisher's in southern Indiana. Unbelievable. I still wonder if this is right. And I did the work. But it was really deep. And it was really satisfying that day to come home. See that. But when you look at, you add all that together, one thing you find out is that there's a big difference in fragipans. I mean, this fragipan here and that fragipan over there is not the same, and this fragipan here and the fragipan in southern Indiana and Illinois is not going to be the same. They're going to be different. You're going to get different results in different places, and you can see it here. But if you want to take a rule of thumb, then you would see, if you look at the number of times it was grown in the last few years in the inches, you would say about 1 inch a year. If you stick with it and you grow ryegrass as a cover crop or as a forage, it's about 1 inch a year. And if you look at what 1 inch means to fragipan soil, and look at the research that's been done in Kentucky, and some of it was done right over in that field right there, and some of it done in West Tennessee, you'll see that for every inch of increase in depth that you get, you can increase your yields about 2 to 2.5%. That's the research, 2 to 2.5%. So if you stuck with it long enough to get 5 inches, then you should get 10 to 13% yield increase. On the average, it's not going to always work out that way, fellas. Mr. Upton over there has had phenomenal success, and I'm going to be proud to introduce him in a minute for him to tell you what he found. This is our data. Now, that's Junior. This is your data. Do you want me to tell them about this, or are you going to tell them me? I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's done an outstanding job with. He's on the Fragipan soil right below I-64 in southern Illinois. And you got Fragipan soils there just like you got in Kentucky. I always thought Illinois had better stuff than we did, but I went up there and said, that's not like that.
You got to go a little further north.
Okay. And so he has grown for 15 years. When I did this, he had grown annual ryegrass as a cover crop. Now, you grew mixtures most of the time with annual ryegrass, but he had annual grass in the mixture, and he can talk about that in a minute. And this right here, this dark line is when I took all the corn yields in that county, Hamilton County, Illinois, averaged them all together, and it averaged about 125. I was surprised it didn't increase over a 15-year period. There wasn't much change. It averaged 125 bushel, up and down a little bit, but you put the average to it, it's about 125 bushel. Here's his yearly average compared to that annual average. So he starts out pretty well below. He had one good year, but pretty well below the county average because he's got a Fragipan soil. It's eroded some to, I think, little bit, and he was growing these cover crops. But you can see that somewhere around 5 years or so, it began to take off. Now, it was improving here, but it began to take off. So you had good years and bad years, as you can see that blue line, but if you look at this red line right here, that's the average, that's the trend line. So the trend line starts about 15 bushels below the county average, crosses over about 5 years after the average, and then it goes to like 30, well let's see, what is that? Like 40 bushels above the county. It starts 15 below, winds up 40 bushels above. But now that's with a 125 bushel average for the county. Anybody calculate that in their head right quick, but that's big. Now I don't think, I wouldn't expect to get that if I was doing it, but it is a possibility that he's got. So I gave you what I know about 2 and 2.5% per inch. That's what I can pull out from the research and what we found. This is what he has found. It's going to vary a lot. So I want to introduce Mr. Junior Upton, who has done this work on this farm with Mr. Mike Plummer for all these years, and I want him to tell you his story.